If you're new to Brawlhalla and especially to fighting games, learning everything from scratch can be very intimidating, and even more so when you have no idea what all the words mean. So that's where I come in. Today, I'll be teaching you all the terminology and what it all means. If there's something you have an idea for, let me know down below. And if there's anything I missed, feel free to ask me about it, and I'll get back to you. Starting off, we have light attacks. These are done on the ground and consist of side light, which is done by pressing either side and light attack. Down light or D light, which can be done by pressing down and light attack. And neutral light or N light, which is done by pressing light attack on its own. There are also heavy attacks, better known as signatures, which, similarly to light attacks, can be done by pressing the heavy attack in different directions. You have side signature, or sometimes shortened to side sig, by pressing either side and the heavy attack button. Down signature, down sig or D sig, which refers to pressing down and the heavy attack button. And neutral signature, neutral sig, or sometimes referred to as N sig, which is done by pressing the heavy attack and none of the direction buttons. Signatures can also be held as what's known as a charged signature, and this will be indicated by a glowing white light pulsating off the character. These are unique to each legend, whereas the light attacks are the same for every legend with the same weapon. And all weapons operate like this with the exception of Chakram, that has two variants. The split version, which are the light attacks, and the fused version for all intents and purposes are essentially medium attacks. Not quite a heavy attack, but a heavier version of the light attacks. Scythe or battle boots, which have active input, meaning certain attacks can have two variations, either going left and right or by having soft and hard versions. And greatsword, which instead, each light attack has an opener, a bridge, and an ender. Unless you start with the same move twice, then it just becomes an opener and ender. There are also aerial attacks or aerials, which can be done by pressing jump and a directional light attack, which are side air or sair, done by pressing jump, a direction, and light attack. Down air or dare, done by pressing jump, a down and light attack. Neutral air or nair, which is done by pressing jump, taking your hands off the directions and light attack. In the air, it's also possible to do what is known as a ground pound by pressing down and heavy attack while in the air. And a recovery, which acts as a way to send you upwards while airborne, which is done by pressing heavy attack. All aerials are unique to each and every weapon. And lastly, you have the weapon throw, a tool that can be used both offensively and defensively, as a way to apply pressure, extend combos, and confirm KOs. Some attacks go by different names, such as unarmed side heavy being known as the haymaker, unarmed down heavy being known as the breakdance, and hammer down light being known as stomp. Before I start explaining the more advanced moves, there's also some movement options you should become familiar with. Firstly, we have the jump, which I hope is self-explanatory enough. A dash, which can be performed as both a forward dash and back dash. Dodges, which can be done in the air in any of these 8 directions, and also what's known as a spot dodge or neutral dodge, which is done by letting go of all directions and pressing the dodge button, and can also be done on the ground but only as a spot dodge. You can also perform a gravity cancel by using a spot dodge, and any light attack or signature can be done in the air. This is easiest practiced with neutral attacks first before moving on to the other directional inputs. Moving on to some of the more advanced movement tech, we have the dash jump, the fast fall, and the dash jump fast fall. The dash jump can be performed by inputting a forward or back dash and jumping, and when combined with the fast fall becomes the fastest way to get around in Brawlhalla. Jumping once into a fast fall is called an empty hop, and is also useful to mix into your gameplay. The fast fall can be done by holding the down direction while being in the air, and can be used to alter how fast you fall back down to the ground. Combining these moves creates the dash jump fast fall. Don't expect to be getting this instantly. It's a pretty advanced technique, but you will eventually come across the terminology for this. You could also do this in both directions, but now, dash jump fast falling has been restricted to only going forward. This is also known as snap dashing, referring to the magnetic snap to the floor that happens when trying to use the dodge button close to the ground. This snap can also be done on ledges and is known as ledge canceling. Dashes can be combined with all sorts of things, such as the slide charges, which are done by dashing off the side of a map while holding typically a signature of your choosing. This is done by keeping the momentum of the dash while holding a signature, and you can release at any time or hold it for the maximum charge. This technique can be used to counter something known as wall hugging or wall camping, which is in the name really. The aim is to sit there until your opponent comes down or wall slip comes into play, a mechanic that only allows you to stay on the wall for 5 jumps consecutively, before you get 3 more chances to touch the stage before losing all of your other options, indicated by the sweating, or combining forward dashes and back dashes in order to dash dance, a way to keep your opponent guessing what your next move is. And a dash cancel. used to extend greatsword combos by resetting when the ender will come out. This is done by doing an opener, a bridge, then a dash cancel to reset, and opener, a bridge and rinse and repeat. This is not something I recommend a new player learning, and I think this small comment thread sums it up perfectly. You can also X-pivot, which is done by dash jumping forward and holding back and up. This is only useful on a handful of weapons, the main one being blasters, and is important to learn at intermediate stages. The dodge button has even more uses too. After a hit on your opponent, you are rewarded with a movement option called the chase dodge. This can be done in 5 different directions, which are up, down, forwards, forwards and up, and forwards and down. You can also do 2 back-to-back known as a chain dodge, which works as a combination of 2 chase dodges in different directions, with the first one starting on the ground. This is most commonly used to chain dodge forward and up, or forward and down. You can do up to 2 chase dodges before the dodge cooldown is applied. Okay, now that we've learned how to attack, dash, and dodge, it's time to teach you some of the fundamentals of the game. True combos are combos that, if timed correctly, can't be dodged out of. These can be done thanks to hit stun, and having enough of it results in the combo being true. Every weapon has a certain amount of these, and each legend can have either more or less depending on how much dexterity they have, and in some cases which signatures they have too. True combos can typically lead to dodge reads, consisting of your opponent dodging in a certain direction and you catching that dodge and extending the combo after it. And in a best-case scenario, what is called a 0 to death. A combo starting at 0 health and ending when the stock has been fully taken. Combos that aren't true are usually called strings. Strings can range from 2 hits all the way up to any length 0 to death, and however many dodge reads you need. Similarly to some attacks, there are some strings that go by different names also. Some of the more notable ones are the egg drop, a weapon throwdown, weapon pickup, and spear dare. The Russian Mafia, a hammer D-light, recovery and most commonly finished with a down air, but can be done with side air and neutral air respectively. The Australian Mafia, similar to the Russian Mafia, a hammer recovery, dare under the stage, and another recovery. A black hole, typically a 2 versus 1 true combo, done by repeating the same move on either side of the victim. Don't worry, these are no longer possible to do if you use the same move more than twice, as directional influence, or DI exists. If you are caught in a black hole for more than 2 moves, you can move in any direction, and your character is forced out of it. And of course, I had to include the Karti classic, a weapon throw, into unarmed down air, and gravity-cancel D-light ground pound. Getting the KO on your opponent off stage like this, especially when the stock is taken earlier than it should have, is known as a gimp. This can be done at any health but naturally. The earlier the better. This next section is basically all the remaining terms I didn't know how to squeeze in earlier, so we'll call this the miscellaneous section. Firstly, we have stat points. Each legend has a distribution of 22 stat points, and each legend's stat spread is unique to the legend itself. These can be altered with stances that can add 1 point to any stat, at the cost of removing 1 point from another. And with the addition of super stances, 2 stat points can be added to any stat with the cost of either 2 from 1 stat or 1 from 2 different stats respectively. Dexterity is the stat value tied to frame data. The more dexterity you have, the easier it is to perform true combos, and in some cases, unlocking new ones. It is also tied to weapon durability, meaning the higher your dexterity, the less likely you are to drop your weapon at higher damages. Speed is the stat tied to movement. The more speed you have, the faster your walk speed and speed in the air. Strength is the stat value tied to force. The more strength you have, the easier it will be to rack up damage and to knock out your opponent. Force is the value given to how far you can send the opponent. Variable force is basically the same concept, except that moves with variable force start sending the opponent further back the more damaged they are, and significantly less at lower damage ranges. Defense is the stat tied to staying alive. The higher the defense, the more hits you can take before being knocked out, and being knocked away doesn't send you as far. Startup time is the amount of frames needed for a move's hitbox to come out, and thus startup the attack. A frame is 1/60th of a second. This is the unit of time used to measure things precisely, and a hitbox is the part of the animation that when collided with, will register the move as a hit. Recovery time is the amount of frames it takes for a move to wind down. This is not to be mistaken with a cooldown. That is the time it takes before you can use another move. There's also a separate, slightly longer cooldown for trying to use the same move again. Hit stun, which was touched upon earlier, is the amount of frames which you are stuck in animation, unable to move. A dodge window is the amount of frames you have to escape in between one attack and another. A dodge window of 0 would mean a true combo, whereas a dodge window of 1 would mean there's 1 frame of opportunity in which you can dodge out of it. Priority is when one attack or type of attacks wins another. Think of it as sort of a rock, paper, scissors. A clash is when two moves collide with each other and nobody wins the exchange. The most common type of clash is with the recovery and will have a distinct sound, but any two moves can clash as long as they hit each other on the same frame. A wake-up attack is doing an attack immediately after getting out of hit stun. And lastly, an exhausted recovery is when you've already done a recovery once and are still yet to touch the ground. The second recovery will be slower and goes less distance, and like everything I've talked about, very situational. This is a lot to take in for a new player, so I hope I'm able to teach you something new. And if you have any questions, I'll happily answer them for you in the comment section below. I don't think I've missed anything, but if there's any term you think I should have included, you should ask me about it. And I also have a playlist dedicated to guides and tips to get better if you want even more help. Thank you all for 10,000 subscribers, and if you haven't already, please consider doing so to support my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.